Welcome to A People's Guide to Publishing. I am your host, Joe Beal, the autistic publisher, and this is Ellie Blue, the sane voice of reason.
Some say. Today we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of people in a lot of industries are talking about, including ours, which is tariffs. President Trump is threatening various countries that we normally have free trade agreements with on imposing greater tariffs. This is causing them to threaten to impose greater tariffs. This is causing a fair amount of economic uncertainty as people in various businesses figure out what that means for them. And we're going to talk a little bit about, first, what people are talking about, what that means for them in publishing, and second, our analysis of what that could mean.
So tariffs are primarily like a product of speculation, meaning that I guess all economics are a product of speculation, that you are not actually responding to your situation, you're responding to your fear of your future situation. And because so much of business is planning, that when that all falls apart, that's sort of where people panic and then they start doing things like spending less and laying people off and putting out doomsday scenarios. And then that is actually what creates economic problems, is because of that speculation.
So can you tell us what you've been hearing from our colleagues in the publishing industry about tariffs? Maybe I'll start by talking about an article I just read about, I think this was so clever, the Christian publishing industry warns of a Bible tax.
Mm-hmm.
They have good PR, and their sales numbers are down for a while, but they're up more recently, and maybe this is why.
Mm-hmm. And so for those unfamiliar, Christian publishers have been struggling a little bit because Christian specialty stores have really been losing their market share to Amazon. And so, we do see occasional quarters recently where Christian publishing sales industry-wide are up. So that is fascinating. But I have to applaud them that this is some of their best marketing I've seen in some years. This is the other fascinating part of tariffs, is so much of tariffs is raw materials. And so in this case, you don't really, since almost no manufacturing is done in the U.S. from any raw materials made outside of the U.S. in publishing, you wouldn't really see that in the same way you would in the automotive sector or what have you, where you have the things that roll up the window made in Mexico, and you have other things, made in China, and you have glass that comes from another continent, and, so we don't really face any of that. So what I hear the most is sort of this, speculative idea that this will, pinch margins on an already, pinched on both ends industry. And I just don't see it,
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to walk myself through the potential scenario that people are concerned about, and I do see it. I do see the concern, because it's very common for publishers who print any kind of full color or highly visual or especially hardcover children's books or gift books. It's very common to print those in China. And the way that I understand that it works, we don't do that. We do all of our printing in the U.S., what I understand that to mean is you sign a book contract with the prices in mind that you're expecting to pay to send the job to China, get it back on the boat. You're assuming that will cost less than what you can get from a U.S. printer. This may or may not be true. And then, years later, you're actually publishing the book, but you're publishing that book with those costs locked in. So I think a lot of the uncertainty is coming from the idea that what if there's suddenly a 25% tax on this container of books I'm shipping back over from China. That's going to completely eat my margin, possibly cause me to lose money, and also potentially cause even greater delays and uncertainty, and will I stay in business and all of that. And honestly, based on what you've been saying about how the tariffs would potentially be more likely to apply to raw materials, it seems more likely that we would be affected as someone who prints in the U.S. by, say, paper prices going up.
But we don't get paper from China,
Mm-hmm.
for example.
I don't know where the paper comes from that printers use. Yeah. That's a great mystery.
Right. It's mostly U.S. and Canada, because it's just it's such a heavy, large raw material that it's not you want to move it around all that much. But so, and again, I think a lot of this is, publishing is your network. Publishing is the relationships that you have within that network. And so I think for most publishers, they have a happy relationship with, 2 to 3 printers, and often those printers will be in China because that is their perception of where the best price is. And oftentimes I'll find that they just don't know how to source a U.S. printer. I mean, let's face it, it's much easier to find an economical books printer in China because there's so many hundreds of printers in the United States that are not book printers, that don't have the equipment for binding, that don't have the equipment to do the kind of volume that a book publisher would do, or just to do it. They can do it, but you'll be paying 70% of your list price instead of what I would recommend 10% of your list price.
And we'll, when we post this video, we'll include some links to domestic US and Canada printers that we recommend, though Canada might not be the best bet for getting around tariffs anymore.
Right. So shout out to the Innovation Press, who prints their books in Minneapolis, in the United States of America, where there are no tariffs because it's really easy.
What's the name of their printer?
Warzala.
Warzala.
Mm-hmm. And we've worked with a lot of very economical printers that do hardcover books with dust jackets in the U.S. We currently work with Versa Press in Illinois, who has very good pricing. It does not have any. Well, the border of Illinois can feel like kind of a doozy sometimes, but you don't pay any tariffs. Point being, we worked with Taylor Pub, which is in Dallas, for some time, and found that the turnaround times were slow, but relative. Well, I'm not even relatively, like lightning compared to printing in Asia. Let's just say, but slow for the U.S. And when I grew up in Cleveland and I watched all of that manufacturing disappear all around me, and then I watched literally my friends' parents get rehired to their old jobs at a lower pay because it had been bought by a larger company, and then just watching what that downsizing does. I don't think that guy that I don't want to call the president is on the right path with this approach, because I think Bluster doesn't really get the kind of results that we're looking for. But I think ultimately there could be positive outcomes of publishers having to reassess their workflow to be domestic.
And then also, another thing to consider is if you truly can't find economical printing for the kinds of books that you want to publish in the U.S., consider changing your production values. There are definitely changes that you could make to what you're planning to publish that would be more sustainable economically in the long run and keep your costs and spending closer to home.
Right, and that's the thing that I've been thinking about is even 6-7 years ago you would see a lot of $9.95 gift books, and now today those very same gift books are $12.95 to $14.95, and I feel like that is a price that people are willing to pay. Mm-hmm. Maybe they have a few more seconds of hesitation in that purchase, but that's ultimately you're paying for the cost of the labor, and I don't see that as necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, the people who print books work really hard, and I don't think I would be able to do that work. It's physically hard work, it's mentally hard work. You have to be really organized, and you have to be really focused, even though you're doing something very repetitive. Give me a really difficult marketing problem or spreadsheet any day over that.
Right. Yeah.
So let's pay those people well, and I'm not sure they're doing that in China.
Right. That is, as one printer we worked with put it, the printers in China have exactly the same equipment. Literally, the only difference is regulation of the environment and what they're paying the people to do the work. Everything else is the same, other than, the air quality that they're breathing. This has been People's Guide to Publishing, the Vlogcast. And we did promise you that this week was going to be about search engine optimization, but that was not as sexy of a topic as we had hoped. But so to further twist your arm, we are going to tackle submissions next week. Thank you.